Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management, a weekly conversation with area leaders about how to persevere during uncertain times. Now here's your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman, and welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. One of the things that you get to see as you drive across our part of the country are some of the gorgeous limestone buildings that were created over the years, many of them over 100 years old. And settlers came, they looked for a place that they could build and things they could use to build a building and grow their communities. And when they did, they saw a lot of limestone around. Well, our guest today received a special award from the Post-Rock Limestone Preservation Group, and they have received this award. It's Jack and Kathie Crispin, and Jack is with us right now. Jack, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
You know, Jack, one of the things that is so cool about when we talk about this is the beauty of these older buildings. How did you get started in this process of restoring a building and then now getting an award for that? What started you down this road?
Well, actually, it was a collection of old bottles. I've been collecting pharmacy memorabilia for many, many years, started when I was in high school, and it grown to the proportions that we decided we needed a building to house it in. And so we started looking at all sorts of communities around, mostly central Kansas, small communities. And at the time, this building was not available. But just before we decided to narrow our list down to the final call, I got a phone call saying that if I wanted the building, it was for sale. And so that's how we decided to buy it.
Well, you are, as I understand, a retired pharmacist, but you've also been very active in the Lincoln community and a lot of different things, whether it be healthcare or other things along the line. So when you decided to take over this building, did you ever imagine it would come to this and come into something so cool?
Well, we had hopes. We knew that we wanted to have museums in our retirement, and we wanted a nice place to live, and we were both interested in history. So this was just a perfect fit for all of them.
Well, I notice in the background you have a lot of bottles and things. Tell me about that part of it. We were talking more about limestone building, but you have kind of a very interesting collection just sitting behind you over there.
Yes, our building is a two-story building. The first floor is a double storefront, and in one side of that, I have my drugstore museum that displays mostly items from the 1880 to 1920 period. And on the other storefront, my wife has her Girl Scout museum. And then we live upstairs. So we just come downstairs to play.
That sounds fun. Talk to me about pharmacy in the late 1800s. I mean, you think about most of it, you understand from watching TV shows, more like snake oil kind of stuff. But you actually have some serious looking things behind you.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was snake oil, but there were the beginnings of a new approach to medicine during that time period and a new approach to what the major drug manufacturers were doing. Instead of just preparing powdered herbs for the pharmacist to mix up, they started switching over to making their own tablets and elixirs and stuff. And the pharmacist was slowly doing less and less compounding work and more just dispensing work. So it's a big time of transition. And I've got items from both ends of that shift.
What's exciting to me, many of us listening right now are probably pretty close to Lincoln or drive around interstate and say, well, there's a sign to Lincoln. It sounds like quite an interesting process. Let's talk about the building, because you guys won an award that was really designed to recognize those people who had taken limestone buildings and turned them into something. How much work was that to get this building up to, I say, regular standards?
It was a lot of work. We bought the building back in 1997 and basically spent the next 10 years of weekends and spare time whenever we could to come over and work on rehabbing the building. And then finally in 2004, my wife got her Girl Scout museum open. 2007, we moved in upstairs and opened the drugstore museum. But it was basically we started out with the walls. The roof was bad, windows were falling out on the street. There was no serviceable plumbing, very little electricity. And so it was basically clean out the trash and start from scratch.
I understand you've taken this to National Park Service standards. What is that, and what does that mean?
Yes, what we are on the National Registry of Historic Places. And so in order to keep on that list, you have to meet certain standards, especially maintaining the exterior appearance of the building, and to use reconstruction and remodeling procedures that maintain the character of the building. So there are some restrictions, but we have never found them to be prohibitive. And the National Park Service has been much more of a help to us than it has been a hindrance.
For those that have looked at these buildings and say, hey, they're so very cool, what was it you had to do to keep the limestone? Like some limestone buildings look like they're just ready to fall down any minute, and then there's some that look like they'll carry on for centuries.
Yeah.
What does it take to keep the limestone, say, healthy or able to sustain?
You just basically have to protect it. Actually, the best way to protect limestone walls is to maintain a good roof. If you can keep the water from penetrating into the walls, that's half the battle right there. And then we repointed the mortar to keep the blocks of limestone in position and well sealed. And other than that, cleaning the exterior to take off some of the black mold. And that was, for the limestone part, that was about it.
When you look at that, though, going through that mortar between, the people that built these really did an amazing job on a lot of these buildings of doing that. Do you feel like you kind of went back in time when you were redoing it?
A little bit, but I had the advantage of electricity. When this building was built in 1881, it was done by, pulleys and ropes and horsepower, and there was no electrical lifts or electrical power tools. So I really have a lot of respect for the craftsmen that built these buildings originally.
Around some of the magnificent buildings, Victoria has that church that's there, the cathedral on the plains. Those taking that limestone and doing that was hard work.
It was hard work.
What was it that? How did you get signed up for the award? Were you surprised when that came in?
Actually, it came in out of the blue. We didn't sign up anything. They just came to us and said, we would like to present you with this award for your work on this building, and get us started off on a series of annual awards to people that are restoring and using limestone buildings.
So you and Kathie worked together on this. Did you bring in outside people to help?
Occasionally, we would have a contractor come in and handle something that was a little beyond our abilities, but a lot of the work was especially the grunt work, we did ourselves.
So did Kathie help you with that, quote, grunt work, or did you have to do all of that?
She
was right in the middle of it.
Yeah. You ought to see her swing a sledge at a bad wall.
Oh, pretty impressive, huh?
Yes.
We'll get that on another video, trying to see her with her sledgehammer on the wall. One of the things I know that people are listening along going, how do I see this? A lot of times you hear about certain things and they may not be as cool as what maybe the story goes along. Yours, I've never heard of it before, but it sounds like a really cool museum to stop by and take a look at. And what are your hours? How do people find out more about it?
Okay, well, we basically are open by chance or appointment. I'm open almost every afternoon from 1 to 5, but it's a one-man operation. So if I've got something else I need to do, it won't be open. But they can go on the internet and search for Crispin's Drugstore Museum, or on Facebook as well under the same name. And they'll find all kinds of information about us and contact information. So they can give us a call and we'll make sure we'll be around when they come up.
Well, Jack, Kathie has a museum that she's put together. You mentioned the Girl Scout Museum.
Yes.
What's that about?
Well, it's about Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And
And
a
the
little
history, all
all the way
history or
back.
different outfits or what exactly?
It's got a little bit of everything. It's got a selection of uniforms all the way back to 1912, photographs, camping items, memorabilia from the Girl Scout organization, and some other pieces from Boy Scouts and Campfire Girls and several other youth organizations as well.
Any cookies? Are there Girl Scout cookies over there? That's what I would stop by for.
Well, not right now. That doesn't come till February.
Jack, hold on just a second. I want to take a quick break and come back. And I'd like you to tell me what, if we stop by the museum, my wife and I, what will surprise us? Think about that. And we'll take a break and be right back. Our guest is Jack Crispin. They have a wonderful museum up in Lincoln and have just won a recent award for their limestone work that they've done on their museum building. Back with more after this.
The most successful investors are those that can keep their emotions in check and take a longer-term view at what portfolios will be worth 3 to 5 years down the road. I'd say that's the most important in determining what investor outcomes are. Market corrections will continue in the future. We've seen many of them over the years, only to see equity prices rise higher, and that'll be the case in the future.
Worth Wealth Management, enhancing lives and strengthening families.
We've been visiting today on Forward Ever with Jack Crispin, and Jack and his wife Kathie have won a nice preservation award for limestone buildings that it recognizes work of taking these old limestone buildings that many of the craftsmen that moved across our country and settled here built these beautiful buildings. They needed to be restored. Jack and his wife Kathie have done such. They have a neat museum in Lincoln. It's right, I'll say cattywampus, but right across the street on the southwest corner of the Lincoln County Courthouse. If you're there, you can go take a look. They're open in the afternoons. But Jack, if we walk in, what's going to surprise us? What things will we find that say, wow, that's really cool?
Well, I think one thing that always amazes people is what was in the medicines that they took back then. Were before antibiotics, before most of the major drugs that we use today and don't think anything about them. And if you pick up a bottle off of my shelf now and look at the ingredients, you're likely to find strychnine, arsenic, mercury, lead, morphine, cocaine. There were basically, if you weren't killing people wholesale, you could put anything into your product and make any claims that you wanted to. So that's always one thing. And then also the fact that back then, when a druggist filled your prescription, he started with basic powders and liquids and formed those into whatever dosage form the doctor wanted. So they made pills, tablets, capsules, lozenges, ointments, whatever the doctor ordered from the individual ingredients.
So that depended on the quality of and the education of your pharmacist.
Of course.
When you're putting that together, and I assume back in the day, I grew up around Clay Center in that area, and Milford, Kansas was not too far, and they had the guy that was selling the goat gland product that proclaimed to be, one of those all curing types of thing.
Yes.
I assume there were a lot of people, and you have some of their bottles and some of their wares of people that were doing the same thing for every type of illness.
Oh, definitely. Yes, we've got a lot of products that were totally worthless and some products that actually did something. And so it covered a broad spectrum of possibilities. I've read several times that 1910 was the 50-50 year, that if you went to see a doctor before 1910, chances were he was going to do you more harm than good. 1910, you hit the 50-50 mark, and slowly since then, we've been getting better and better odds every day.
Well, you have a unique look at the history of this. Are you ever amazed at some of the drugs and some of the things they come out with today based on where we started really 100 and some years ago, but we've come a long way?
Yes, we have. That's very true. Some of the drugs, they're becoming much more complex than the simple compounds that I was selling in my drugstore when I was running it. They're more biological. They're unlocking more and more secrets of the human body and how to manipulate things. And so they are very, very amazing products.
All right, tell us again your hours. When can people come see you in Lincoln? If they're driving by, take that left or right when you're coming on interstate, go up to Lincoln. Lincoln's not only a cool town, but your museum there is pretty neat. Tell us how they get more information. Remind everybody.
Okay, so we're open by chance or appointment, usually in the afternoons, 1 to 5. If you want, you can check on the internet, find Crispin's Drugstore Museum, or on Facebook with the same name, and give us a call so we can be sure and be around when you show up.
Well, I love the work you're done. Taking something that's old and making it new is so very cool. And having that history is another amazing part of things. So again, our guest today, thanks for being with us, Jack. Your wife, Kathie, is in the background somewhere, I know, running the camera and doing all of that. But you guys received the Post-Rock Limestone Preservation Award from the Kansas Post-Rock Limestone Coalition. A neat award, but even neater yet is the museum that you've put together. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks for listening to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. It's brought to you by Worth Wealth Management. I'm Gary Shorman.
Thanks for joining us for Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management. Join us right here next week for another episode with host Gary Shorman. Until then, remember to move forward ever, backward never.